Hello, students. So we finished draping the front bodice, and now we're ready to drape the back. So first thing you need to do is take your front bodice and pin it to your dress form. Remember, we dropped the neckline a 1/4 inch. We always drop the neckline so that whatever we're making isn't choking us. We want to have a little space. So when you pin it back to your dress form, make sure your stitch line here is a 1/4 inch away from the top. And then I'm going to put another pin on the center front about 3 inches below that. Then I'm going to take my waist stitch line, and it's going to get pinned into the center of the tape. Because remember, we're using the center of the tape as our waist line measurement. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my fingers to smooth up center front and put one more pin about 2 or 3 inches from the apex on the center front. So after I've pinned the front, now I'm going to come over to my shoulder. I'm going to put a pin just right here at the waist so it's not pulling, so my muslin's not pulling. I'm going to lower my dress form so I can see my shoulder. And this is where I want to sink my pins in. I'm lining up my pencil line, my stitch line on the seam on the dress form, and I'm sinking in the pins so that we can drape the back over the front. So I'm just making sure that my muslin is lined up on the dress form, nice and neat, perfectly, and I'm actually sinking the pins. This is the only time we sink the pins in. All the other pins, when we're pinning, should be sticking out proud, like this one right here. We don't sink the pins in when we're draping. They're sticking out proud. The only time we sink the pins in is when we need to drape over something. So now she's ready to go, except for one more thing. I'm going to take my side seam here, and I'm just going to fold it out of the way, the front, and go with a pin so that I can drape right here. So now that that's on the dress form, now I can turn to the back. I'm going to lower it a little, and we already have our muslin prepped. So you should have another rectangle that's 24 inches long, 14 inches wide, and you've pressed it and blocked it. So that means you've ironed it really nice and blocked it so it has right angles. Then you drop your grain line so that you have a 1 inch center back seam allowance. This is my grain line right here, my 1 inch center back seam allowance. And then you measure down 4 inches and mark for your neck. Then you measure the distance from your neck to your shoulder on your dress form, and then you draw with your L square a cross grain line. That's a balance line. Then you measure from that shoulder out to your armhole, and whatever that measurement is, you're going to measure out on your cross grain line and mark it right here. Then you measure back 1.5 inches, mark that, and that's where you're going to drop a grain line, and that's a balance line. So after you've done that, you're ready to drape. I folded back my 1 inch seam allowance, and I put some pins in it so that it stays back. And the first thing I'm going to do is line up my neck. So I pin my neck, mark to my neck on my dress form, and then I'm going to remove the pin in my center back seam allowance and use it and pin the across shoulder at center back. So I'm going to keep removing these pins, and I'm just going to pin straight down center back. But first, before I finish, I want to check this balance line and make sure it's parallel to the floor. So if I pin all the way down, I won't be able to necessarily move this. So now I'm going to check back away. You want this balance line to be parallel to the floor. So give it a good look, get it parallel. As soon as it's parallel, then I just smooth my fingers over. And on this line here, I'm going to take a pinch and scooch that line over to my armhole, right to the edge of my armhole. And there's this pinch is my pinch of ease. So I'm going to pin my crosshatch at my armhole and my shoulder, and I'm going to grab my pinch of ease right here. It's about 1/8 of an inch on each side. So that's a total of a quarter, and pin it like that. So the pinch of ease should be about an inch away from the balance line. So now I'm gonna just take all of this excess muslin. This is gonna become a dart. I'm gonna show you how to drape the neck and create a shoulder dart, because this is a 2-dart back bodice. We had 2 darts on the front. We had the princess line dart and we had a side seam dart. On the back, we're gonna have a shoulder dart and another princess line. So again, we're gonna just smooth over the shoulder and put in a pin. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is finish pinning my center back all the way down. So I'm just taking those pins out and pin all the way down to the waist. Remember, we always pin at the center of the waist tape. That's how we're doing it in this class. So the next thing I'm going to do is smooth under the armhole and put a pin at the intersection of the armhole and the plate. And then I'm sliding my hands straight down the side seam. Then I'm going to take my scissors, because now there's some tension right here. I can see that, and I want to snip up just a little bit just to relax my muslin so I can drape more properly. And then I'm going to double pin at the intersection of the waist and the side seam. Then this balance line is going to be my pinch of ease. So I'm going to smooth over on the waist, and I'm going to grab that little 1/8 of an inch on each side, fold it over, and pinch my ease. And pin it so it doesn't move. Now the excess here, this is going to become my dart. So I'm going to I want the dart on my princess line as close as possible. So I'm actually going to move my ease a little and just make sure it's not in the way of my dart. So I moved it over just a little bit to the right. So now I'm going to take this and try to get it right up on my princess line as close as possible. I'm not measuring. We're not measuring. It's just an eyeball. You're just feeling it with your fingers. And again, I want to clip here, clipping here to release the muslin in the waist and put a couple pins, because I was having trouble getting my dart to look nice and neat. So now that I clipped it, it's nice and flat right here. And you're going to take your pin, and while you're pinching your dart, you just pitch your pin into the fabric like you were going to pin into, like pinning a hem. So see how my pin is actually, I'm not just sticking a pin into the dress form, I'm actually putting the pin into the dart like this. So, and it's right at the waist tape in the center. I'm going to finish pinning at the center of the waist tape on both sides of the dart, because we're going to mark this after we're done pinning. So first we prep our muslin, then we drape it and pin it, and then we mark it with the pencil. It's the same pattern. I'm clipping into the muslin because it's a little bit tight and I want to have a nice fit here. So now I can readjust the pins a little bit because I clipped into it to get a better fit. So I'm done with my dart and my waist here. I'm going to smooth this out and put a couple pins in the side seam just to hold it into place. We're not going to do the side seam yet. We're going to do it together with the front. Now I'm going to mark my vanishing point on the dart. So again, the vanishing point is kind of where you see it ease off. So I don't know, it's like right about here. And I just put a pin in like that. Now I'm going to go up to the top to my neck. And I'm going to start clipping into the neck. So I want to just clip straight down. I'm going to take this pin off, and I'm going to smooth this straight over like this. So you will have this here, and that's fine. What I want to do is smooth this like this, and this excess is going to be a little dart. Going to be like 1/4 of an inch or a 1/2 inch, depending on your dress form. So I'll keep continuing to pin on that seam. I'm feeling the seam on the neck and pin. And once it starts to get too tight, like I'm right now, I feel that tension. That's when I know I need to cut and clip into the muslin. So I'm going to clip in over here. Remember, we need to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so don't go too far. So now it's easing up, and I'm going to clip some of this out of the way. And I want to get to where I can actually see that shoulder intersection on the front. So I'm clipping again. So when I bring this, when I lower it down, I can see now the pencil marking on my front, and that's what you want to be able to see. So I'm going to pin right on top of my pencil marking. Make sure that's pinned in really well. Pin my neck. And now I can make my dart. So I'm going to grab the excess here, and I want to line it up right on my princess line. So there's a princess line up here at the shoulder, and I want to get that lined up. I'm having some tension right here. I know it's hard to see in the video, but I'm going to go ahead and pin the dart, and then I'm going to go over here and clip into it so it lays better. So now I can finish pinning along the shoulder. So the pins are holding the muslin, but they also are going to be showing me where I need to mark with pencil when I go back. So I'm just finishing pinning across the shoulder, smoothing out my muslin, pinning, and now I'm all done draping it. Well, whoops, no, I'm not done. I have to do the side seam. Too fast. So I finished my neck, I finished the shoulder. I need to put in my vanishing point on my dart up here. So I just put in that. So whenever we do a dart, we always have to mark the vanishing point. So I have one down here and one up here. Now I'm going to do my side seam. So we can take these pins out. And we're going to match up this side seam here, my new side seam that I've drawn in. So remember, we drop the armhole an inch and then we bring it out a 1/2 inch. So this is my new side seam. This is the stitch line, and this is the 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm matching the stitch line up with my muslin, and then I'm going to pin. So stitch line up with the muslin. Pin. Okay, so now we are working on our side seam. So I'm going to unpin the front, and I'm going to match my stitch line to my back muslin. So I'm going to pin as best I can from the back. It's snug on the back, and I'm going to pin and grab that stitch line. So when I'm pinning through, I'm pinning into that stitch line right there. So I'm going to, this stitch line and the back of the muslin, and I'm feeling for the side seam. I can feel this, the side seam tape, the bump, and I'm keeping it up close. And I'm pinning right here. So see, my pin is flush with the stitch line, and on the back, it looks like that. And the location that I'm pinning is on this rope here. That's the location. So that's where I'm grabbing the front and grabbing the back and pinning, and I have to look to find the stitch line on the front and put it, and then make sure I'm grabbing close enough to the back and then on that line. And again, grabbing here, and my fingers are on that seam line. So I'm in the right place. And I'm checking to make sure my pins are right there. They are, and it looks like this on this side and this on this side. And then what's left is I want to go back and put these pins back in the waist. I took them out so that I could pin the side seam, but now I can go back and put them in. And then I want to double check and make sure that I have everything pinned where it needs to be. I have my vanishing points, I have my ease. I want another pin here, holding in my dart, and it looks good. Now I'm ready to mark it. So remember, when we're draping, we have to prep our muslin first. We have to draw in our markings. Then we go to the dress form and we start pinning it and draping it. Then we mark it on the dress form, and then we take it off and we true it on the table. So those are the steps. That's that 5. The prepping, the draping, pinning, marking, 4 steps, truing, 4 steps. So when we're marking, we don't make dashes. We roll the pencil like this, and you're making little dots. So pattern draping and pattern making is very, very specific art and skill. And all drapers and pattern makers know this language. They know what a dot is. If you put dashes, that means something else, and they'll be confused. So you always want to have the right language. So when I get up here to the intersection, I'm going to be marking my front. So you can pull it back and check. I just pulled it back to make sure I'm seeing it correctly. I'm marking the intersection, and then I'm going to roll my pencil and make the dots across that shoulder seam. So this is the shoulder seam of the front, and I'm copying it to the back. And then I'm going to put my intersection here, right at the edge of the armhole where it's falling off, at the shoulder, sorry. And I'm going to mark my darts. I can just rub the pin on the front and the back. And I'm going to mark my vanishing point. I can rub the pencil, lay it and rub it. And that's my dart, my shoulder. Now I'm going to do the armhole. I want to mark the screw in the plate. So I want to just put a mark parallel to where the screw in the plate is. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it, and I do a dash like this. That's all it is, a dash. That line is going to help me draw my armhole, so I have a beautiful armhole when I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and mark the intersection on the dress form here too, just so I have it, because it's good to have. I don't need to mark anything else because I'm going to transfer the front to the back. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to mark the waist. I want the intersection at the waist and the side seam. So it's across. And then I'm going to dot the center of the tape all the way across. Make sure you're on the center of the tape. And then I put a dash at center back at the waist. We have a dash at the neck and a dash at the waist. So not dots, dashes. Then I'm going to mark the dart, both sides. I just rub it with the pencil, both sides of the pin, and mark my vanishing point, rub it with the back of the pencil, and just double check all my marks. I think I've done a good job. So as soon as I'm done marking, then I can take it off the dress form, and then I'll do the truing up on the table.